Episode 16, Earning His Meals. His jaw dropped slightly. I'd never hurt you. That's crazy, he said. I wouldn't hurt anyone. He backed up toward the door. I have no way of knowing that. I don't know you, I said. You have nothing here. Nothing. You could be buddying up to us to steal our things. You could be a murderer, a rapist, a sociopath. Lord knows why you ended up here, I said calmly, to teach rather than scold. He seemed hurt by the idea, so I continued. And you're a foot taller and 60 pounds heavier than I am, blocking the only exit in my home. He backed out of the house entirely. I'm pretty sure you'd scream and everyone would come running. How stupid would that be? So you thought this through already? I said. With him retreating, I was now able to joke. He shook his head, no, with a pained, if not offended, look on his face. I paused. I'll count it as 5 trips. There's another bag of cans someone dropped off today. Do you know the route to the mesa? It took him a second to realize I had shifted gears. No, I don't, he replied. I paused, thinking about how to word it, then let out half a laugh with an exhale. Jesus Christ, I thought. He would need to see the map I had carved over the table, which meant I'd have to invite him back inside, to stand in the exact same spot I just scolded him for standing in. After explaining, he exited again, but managed to leave without taking the cans. I shook my head and continued about my day. I had time to take stock of what I had in my various hiding spaces and come up with an actual menu for the next week, so I had a grocery list to go by for tomorrow. I even made plans for peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. It's crazy, but when you're living one day to the next, you don't really have time to get creative about what you can do. I didn't realize how useful the help was. Ray came by after a while. We stopped at my fence and talked for a second. Beef stew tonight? I asked. Ooh, he let out, working his eyebrows. Beans plus rice plus stew? He asked. Beef stew already has beans, and rice soaks up the flavor nicely. It's the perfect marriage of dry staples. We would have this more often if beef stew wasn't so expensive. I replied. I went inside and he followed. So did he stay the night? Ray asked. What if he did? I turned around looking for a hint of anything in his face. There was none. I laughed and said, No, what kind of girl do you think I am? He laughed. An Anna? I don't know, he said with a shrug. I laughed back, but was actually hurt by that. I poured the dried beans into the pot. I don't expect a lot of people tonight, I said after a pause. With the early morning and as quiet as the day was, I bet most stay in. Ray agreed. Well, Denny will be there. We know that much. He winked at me. Denny would be there, I thought. I pulled out my blankets to make another nice nest, but left a blanket-free spot to the left so I wouldn't have to free one up for him later. Denny returned with a cart full of dirt. I stared at it for a minute, dumbfounded, mainly at how stupid I'd been for not thinking of that. God, that's so stupid. I thought if I just brought the dirt, I could fill more cans than the other way, he smiled. Why the hell didn't that cross my mind? I did 4 trips yesterday. What the hell? He pulled the wagons in and set up under the tarp to start filling the cans. It was kind of nice having another person there in the yard working with me, but also awkward. I didn't know what to do with myself. I felt like I needed to be busy too. I went out and talked to Ray as he built the fire, then came back in and shuffled things in the house for no reason. Denny started asking me questions. So where are you from? Just here, Albuquerque, I said. Do you have family in town? He asked. Yeah, I said, not wanting to continue. What about you? Tennessee originally. All my family's back there, he replied. I nodded, but being inside, he couldn't see me. How did you end up in DeReg? He asked. I paused. Denny, you don't ask people that. Oh, I heard him say. Well, I moved to Burke and just couldn't get on my feet. Got into drugs. Nothing I couldn't quit, but I couldn't get work. I'm sorry to hear that, I said, stepping out to make eye contact. He looked up and smiled. It's hard out here, but there's not as much temptation. I feel safer here. I nodded, thinking that's why a lot of people stay here. You know, like something bad might happen, but at least I'm in control, he continued. I nodded again, knowing all too well what he meant by that. I made $20 from the water and some random work today. What will that get me? He pulled the cash from his pocket, smiling large. If I can get the blankets for free, I'll charge you $3 each. They're bulky to haul in. Is there anything else you need? I asked. I could use a change of clothes, maybe a hat, he added. I can get those for free for sure. I'll do $5 for a set just because it takes more time to find sizes, I replied. You'll need your own dishes too. He looked up from the cans and smiled. Thank you, Olivia. Really. You don't know how much. You're working. You're earning your way. No favors were done here, I replied, cutting him off and turning to walk away. Ray called me over. I thought for the food. I walked to the fire and he waved me to lean in to talk. You're being really harsh on him, V, he said. I don't think I am. I've enjoyed his company. I shook my head. Do robots enjoy the company of humans? He asked sarcastically. I dropped my arms and scowled. Do you remember when you came here with a duffel bag, clueless? I did remember. Ray let me sleep in the corner of his hut for a few weeks. I was so desperate and alone, and that little act of charity was really the make or break of it. I remember quietly crying myself to sleep, thankful to even have that. I nodded. You're doing for him what I did for you, but when you needed to talk, I let you, he continued. It's not like I sent him to gather shit from the neighbors, I replied, a little defensive. It's honest work, he scowled back. He was right. Of course, he didn't realize that through all that talking, I'd developed feelings for him and would later be crushed by it. But he did help me cope and adjust. His company once gave me something to look forward to every day in this desolate landscape. I looked back at Denny, and instead of seeing a tall, capable, and potentially dangerous man with a list of possible motives and dark secrets, I saw someone who was completely alone in this world. So alone that he was thankful to stuff dirt into soda cans for an absolute stranger, trying to forge a human connection with the only person who'd shown him kindness in who knows how long. I nodded again. Ray was right. Episode 17, His Arm Around Me. Ray was handling the cooking, so I went back in, smiling at Denny as I passed. I pulled out 2 sets of dishes. Dinner time came around, and I was right. It was just the regulars around the fire. We ate our fill as the flames cast our shadows out over the homesteads surrounding us. John and Jackson were leading the conversation, sharing gossip about people. I wasn't listening, though. I was too busy trying to think of what to say to let Denny open up. So tell me about that knife. I looked over at him. He smiled, warm. It was my brother's, older brother's. He just gave it to me one year when I was young and taught me how to sharpen it, and for some reason I kept it. Sort of like a security blanket or a ring you never take off, he replied. Doing that thing he does, leaning in over me as he spoke, making too much eye contact. Where are you staying now? I continued, already knowing the answer. About 3, I guess, roads? 3 roads down? There's already a Denny over there. What are the odds of that? I laughed, also knowing about the other Denny. He laughed back, leaning in even more, smiling, and whispering, She doesn't like me at all. He continued talking about the hut he was in. Apparently a guy had a heart attack, leaving it open. I didn't hear much of it. I couldn't listen. I stared at the fire, nodding. I was more focused on my arm and how the heat pooled between his and mine. I imagined the eddies of warm current coming off the fire, circling between our elbows, bouncing off the cold air behind us to come back in and form little swirls. Conversation died, but after a while, Denny spoke up. Hey, everyone. I just want to thank you all for making me feel so welcome here. Jackson, who was in a funny mood tonight, took this as a toast and raised his glass. Others followed suit. I seemed to be the only one to hesitate. To us, for making this guy feel welcome, Jackson said. We laughed. I looked over at Denny and bumped my shoulder to his. He laughed. And to Olivia for letting me earn my meals, Denny added. There was a quiet pause before Ray lifted his glass and said, To V! And everyone cheered again. Denny looked at me quizzically. V? Olivia, V, I explained. He nodded, then looked at me with a smile. Then I'll call you Vivi. His eyes burned into me. He was definitely flirting. I noticed for the first time that he had a dimple. I laughed and agreed. I felt in the spotlight. I hated it, and I loved it. Lord, please don't let him be a psychopath. I wasn't sure, but I think he scooted in closer. It just seemed warmer between us. I didn't move. Like if I shifted, so might the wind, and it would take the moment with it. I stared at the fire. The guys all joked, and the night wound on. I sat there so long I started to fall asleep sitting up. Denny caught me as I slumped sideways, putting his arm around me. Let's get you into bed, Vivi. he said, and helped me up, gathering my blanket pile and walking me to my fence. He waited for my permission to enter, then escorted me in, turned the lantern on, shook them out, and laid them on my pile, trying to get me to lie down. I laughed slightly and reminded him I needed to lock my gate. I could lock it, he said. Did he want to take my key with him? Why? I shook it off and smiled, pulled a few blankets off the top, and told him to keep warm tonight. I followed him to the gate, threading the chain through the fence and locking myself in, the bells jingling as I did. I lay there for an hour and heard them all still out by the fire talking. I couldn't make anything out, but Denny had stayed and chatted longer, and it made me smile. All the people in my little world enjoying each other. This new guy fit in so naturally. I fell asleep to the bass in their voices as they went on for hours. I thought about him. Just his presence. Nothing sexual. I felt warm inside thinking of him being just outside. It felt safe. I could feel my brain sending out little jolts of happy neurochemicals every time I replayed his arm around me. His smile. How large his pupils were as they looked at me. That dimple. I lay there sending psychic messages to the universe, asking it to move him closer to me. I dreamt about him. I dreamt that after everyone left, he came to my fence and whispered my name. I called to him to come in. He crawled over my fence again to be with me. I heard the jingle as he climbed. Seconds seemed to take minutes. His shadow moved over the space as he crouched down to enter my house. He came to the bed and leaned over me. I could feel his body looming over me. He leaned over and his hand cupped my mouth. His hand cupped over my mouth. I awoke to a hand over my mouth. I started to struggle, but before I could do anything, his weight had my arms pinned under the blankets. This was real.